Oh my goodness, did you see that? The camera was focused on the floor for a good 30 seconds and no one noticed. Or maybe the people seated behind the preacher are talking to each other while she's preaching. Or the announcement slides are playing over the anthem. The list goes on. If you're doing online worship, there's a lot of opportunity for mistakes. So, how do you fix it? You must do a monthly evaluation of your worship online. Stick around, and I'll show you how. Welcome to Coffee with Coach. I'm Steve Petty, and I have 3 goals for these videos: to help you become a better church leader, to save you time and money, to help educate, energize, and motivate you to energize and motivate your church. So this week I want to talk about evaluating your online video. Doing church every week, live, in person, is one thing. Doing online video is something else. It's not just a matter of putting a camera on and letting everybody see what's going on in the sanctuary. There's a lot more to it than that. Have you ever stopped to look at your video? I know a lot of pastors have actually never looked at their online video. It's time to do that. It's time to sit down with your video team and look at some of those Sunday videos. So I've got some ideas for you. I've got 4 things to look at and 4 ways to improve. So, first, sit down and look at the whole video from last Sunday. And the first thing I want you to do is to make a list. List everything that happened in worship. Now, this isn't starting with the bulletin. Start with a blank piece of paper. Start with the first video you put online. So if your video begins 10 minutes before worship and you've got your service online so that people can log in and kind of watch the whole thing. Every element that happens from the time you start broadcasting, because that's when people start evaluating. They look at that dead time at the opening. So watch the whole thing. What goes on? Anything that's happening on screen more than 3 seconds is an element. Write it on your list, even if it's blank time, even if it's people talking over the microphones in the dead time at the beginning, even if it's the choir director rehearsing the choir while the microphones are open. Write it down. This is something that people can watch online. That's not necessarily a good thing, but write down every element. The sermon, the anthems, the transitions, the screen, the slides, everything. Write them all down. Your list is going to include maybe 30 to 100 different things. You're going to evaluate the whole video from the moment it opens until the moment it finishes, and you go offline. So look at the whole thing, make a list. All of those things go in. All the formal elements, all the informal elements, all the screens, all the speakers, anything that lasts over 3 seconds, write it down. Second, we're going to evaluate the technical elements. So watch the video again and think about these technical elements. For each element, think about the technical aspects of it and give it a grade from 1 to 10. 10 being the very, very best, and 1 being, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did that. So first of all, look at just the video. Focus. Was everything in focus? All the transitions in focus? Were people's faces in focus? Was it in focus the whole time? Lighting. Was the primary element well lighted? Not too dark, not too bright, not blown out. How about clarity? Was the contrast in color clear? Was it easy to decipher what was going on? Framing. Was the element properly framed, or were they off to the edges? Distractions. Anything that draws the eye's focus off the intended portion. So people start looking away because there's movement back there. Odd things going on in the background. Part of people's bodies cut off. Clutters of paper. Did the camera ever fail to move to the next speaker? If videos were used as examples, were they appropriate? Was the resolution appropriate to be seen on your screen? Now, look at the audio. Well, listen to the audio. Was the primary element clearly heard? Were speakers at the lectern and pulpit wireless? Did they use the microphones properly? Was the band and choir mic'd so that the words were clearly heard? Was the audio and video perfectly synced? Were the instruments, piano, organ, bands, bell, properly mic'd and heard? Were the vocals properly adjusted for hearable frequencies? Were there any technical sounds, feedback, hums, clicks, drops? Were the mics properly set to avoid pops, hisses, and clipping? Now look at the slides. Anything that you presented ahead of time on a slide, was the right screen up at the right time? Did the hymn slides change properly? Were there blank screens, frozen screens, black screens? Third, look at the human element. The primary speakers, did each person who spoke to the congregation introduce themselves? Keep in mind the congregation sitting there may know you, but the congregation online has never met you. Every speaker who comes to the microphone should introduce themselves, even if they're there every single week. Think of Stephen Colbert. He comes online every single week and says, "Hi, I'm Stephen Colbert." Everybody knows it's the Stephen Colbert Show. He still introduces himself. People should introduce themselves whenever they step to a microphone and stop speaking the first time. Was there noisy shuffling of papers? Did the speaker look up at the camera and the congregation, or was the speaker distracted looking at something else, looking at their paper all the time? Did the speaker properly use the microphone before them? Was it adjusted so that they weren't popping and leaving hissing noises in the microphone? Annoying stuff. You don't want that. Do they properly use the microphone? Did the speaker stay in the primary focus box for the cameras? Was each speaker in place prior to the element that just ended so that the camera can pick them up immediately as soon as the previous element ends? Fourth thing, the intangibles. Were there times when we waited for something to happen? People walking, getting something set up. When did we find ourselves distracted because the video lost its focus on the theme? Now, grade each element and then compute your average. Then look at that chart that you've just finished, that list of elements, and decide, what do you want to change? So first of all, suggestion number 1, pick the low-hanging fruit. What are the easiest things to do? Well, okay, we need to do better on the hymn transitions. Well, we need to keep the pulpit in focus the whole time. What is it? There's got to be something that's really, really easy to do that it just gets away from you every single week. Pick the low-hanging fruit first. Think about which things can you fix now and who will fix it. Some things are going to take longer. So third, which ones will take time and who will begin to tackle that? Make a plan for how it is that you're going to fix it. And then fourth, I want you to come back in a month and do it all again. Look at it and say, well, here's the list we had from last time. Did we improve the low-hanging fruit? Did we improve the quick fix things? Has somebody got a plan for how we're going to do the long-range things? Go back and look at the whole video and reevaluate. How you doing? If you do this for about 6 months, your video will so drastically improve you won't believe it. You'll look back at the first ones and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe we really did that. If you do it for a whole year, you'll almost be professional. You'll have this all worked out, which is great because then going forward, you've established a level. You've established some values and how you want to do it. You've established a sense of what the team considers excellent work, and the team is striving for excellent work. That's huge. And your team will take pride in the production that they put out every single week. You will build an atmosphere of teamwork and excellence that will permeate all the rest of the church. So take the time, evaluate your weekly online videos, and look at the presentation you're making before the whole world of who your church is. Well, that's it for this week. If you have suggestions or comments, please add them below or email me at steve@revstevep.com. Next week, I'll be talking about preaching Black History Month. I hope you already have plans, but regardless of what you are preaching on, I have some tips to help you. I hope you find these videos helpful and worth sharing with friends and colleagues. If so, I would love it if you would click on the subscribe button below and maybe even the bell so you could be notified when the next video drops. Plus, watch for my upcoming podcast. I'll see you next week on Coffee with Coach.